What are some ways to practice self-care? That's the question that we're going to talk about today. Practicing self-care on a daily basis is such an important part of us being able to handle the daily stressors that can really cause anxiety or depression. My name is Mandi Gardner, and I'm a trauma-informed certified yoga instructor, as well as a DBT skills coach, and also a CPTSD survivor or childhood trauma survivor. So I come to you as a peer, as someone who has been through it and experienced it, and I share with you what has really been transformative for me in my life. So what are some ways to practice self-care? When it comes to our emotional self-care, journaling is a really great way to be able to journal what it is that we're really feeling in the moment and thinking. Also, scheduling a therapy appointment or a coaching appointment can be emotional self-care. Mindfulness practices are also really valuable. Let's say you're starting to feel really emotional. One way to bring yourself back to your body and without letting your head go run away with things, you can come to your breath, slow your breath down, and then get very aware of your senses. Consider the 5 senses. How am I feeling? How's the air feel on my skin? And what am I seeing? And what am I hearing? Really get present, and that can help you. If your mind is reeling or really stressed out about something, you can get very in your body by really connecting to those 5 senses. Being able to process and express your emotions. If you journal and write them down first, it really can help you in organizing your thoughts when you go to approach having that conversation that could potentially be challenging or difficult. Physical self-care is also so important. As a yoga instructor, obviously, I promote practicing yoga, but anything like going on a walk or going on a hike are wonderful ways. If you prefer the gym or whatever you prefer, getting those endorphins up by getting that sweating going is such a valuable piece of being able to regulate our nervous system and really stay grounded and in this loving space. Eating nutritiously is also a beautiful part of keeping our nervous system grounded and keeping our emotions stable and being able to really care for ourselves in a very nourishing, healthy way. Making sure that you get really good rest is also so important, especially when it comes to being vulnerable to emotional dysregulation. I know that struggling with complex trauma and childhood trauma, one of the biggest challenges is emotional dysregulation, and part of that can be contributed by having a weakened vagus nerve, and physical exercise and breathing techniques can actually strengthen that vagus nerve, which actually helps us to be more emotionally resilient. Getting all 8 hours of sleep is so important to help keep our nervous system regulated and calm and to keep our emotions at bay. It really helps to keep our physical and mental health at its best. Self-care can also include spending time with people who really support you, who really love you and care about you. That's so important. Sometimes we can move out of the house and go off to college and forget that our family loves us and wants to hang out with us. Or maybe that's not the case at all. And maybe we just have a few choice friends who are always there for us. That's such an important piece to have those supportive relationships. Be mindful of who is it that always shows up for you and how can I really show up for them, and really encourage this relationship to be more positive. Being able to do the opposite of what we feel sometimes is a really important piece of self-care. So if we're feeling really depressed and we really want to just isolate ourselves and be by ourselves, sometimes the best thing that we can do is call a friend and go get a coffee or a meal with them. And that can really help to boost your spirits. That's called opposite action, and it comes from dialectical behavior therapy or DBT skills. And I do talk a lot about those in other videos. If you're interested, definitely check them out. You could also join support groups or communities to help so that you have like-minded people that you can connect with. Being able to set boundaries for yourself is also a really important piece of self-care and self-love. Being able to say no and setting clear boundaries is a skill. Because unfortunately, some of us can struggle with being people pleasers, right? And so that can be really challenging for us to say no. We want to just say yes to everything. But then we can find ourselves exhausted and depleted. So we really need to identify, like, what is my core value, and do I really need to do this thing, or can I pass on it? So being able to say no is so important for you to maintain your sanity sometimes. So I encourage you to get brave and say no when you know in your gut that's really what you want to say. This really does help to protect your energy, and you can foster healthier relationships because you're putting energy toward the relationships that are really supportive for you. Get creative. Do something that really inspires you. You could do art, you could try something new, you could get a new plant, something like that. You could go out into nature and go on a walk and grab a leaf and break it up in your fingers. Really just get outside and do something that really engages the senses that you really enjoy. Maybe it's baking or cooking, whatever really lights you up. Make sure that you do that thing and make time for it. Get creative with playing music, if you play music, whatever has deep personal meaning to you. Really make time for that thing. I know that cooking for my family is such a meaningful thing for me, especially making yummy treats, which I know is not always the healthiest, but I do try to make them healthy-ish, right? I use a healthy wheat and try to reduce the sugar or whatever, but kids like their treats, and so it's really nice to be able to make a homemade treat with quality ingredients. And that's something that I really enjoy. So find that thing that really lights you up, that you enjoy, that also helps to potentially build connection or just spiritual expression, whether that's writing and journaling or painting or creating music. Getting guidance from someone, either a therapist or a coach, can also be really beneficial on the journey to healing. It really allows us to learn skills that become like very real tools to use in our lives to create the lives of our dreams, right? If we have a way that we can really figure out, okay, this is how I feel and this is how I am going to effectively communicate how I feel to this person, and then that actually ends up being a really positive experience and creating more connection. Like, that's the goal. And sometimes when we grow up with childhood trauma, we have really dysfunctional family dynamics. And how the heck do we learn how to have healthy relationships? Learning new skills, whether it's from a therapist or a coach, is a really great way that we can approach that. Being able to connect in community is such a wonderful piece of self-care. Now, even if you're an introvert, we're all human and we all desire connection. And so whether it's in a small group gathering or a large group gathering, it doesn't really matter. Do whatever serves you, but be open to being able to connect in community. Maybe participate in group activities, or maybe even host and invite people over for a game night. Consistent practice of these self-care routines is such a wonderful way that we can practice self-care. Taking care of our emotions, taking care of our physical body, as well as our friendships, and setting healthy boundaries for ourselves so that we can really put our values and needs first. Taking care of our spirit by doing things that are creative and make us feel lit up and excited. Connecting with a mentor or a therapist or a coach is such an important piece so that we can really learn the tools and techniques that we haven't learned yet that really are so helpful in creating the life of our dreams. Connecting in community is a wonderful way of really opening up our hearts again to be able to heal in a really long-lasting way. Because we can create these relationships with people that we deeply connect with and that can support us. So my suggestion to you is to put it on the schedule. Take a look at the schedule for the next week or the next month and figure out, when are you going to prioritize self-care? Either for yourself, whether that's getting outside or getting a facial, or prioritizing time with family and friends, or prioritizing time with making new friends. Sometimes it can be as simple as going to a yoga class to be able to feel connected to community. So whatever you do, put it on the schedule and make it a priority, because your self-care is so important for you to feel the best that you can feel and be the best that you can be. Practicing self-care really is just such an important piece on this healing journey as we try to navigate the symptoms that we can experience, as well as all the external stressors that we're all abundantly aware of. It's so important to take time for ourselves, to just connect to ourselves, because there's just a lot of overwhelm out there. So make time for yourself, put it on the schedule, and I'll see you in the next video. Namaste, my friends.